So I wondered if everybody brought something to hand over. That will be the second basket that's passed. So just be sure to put that in there. So last week we talked just a little bit in our discussion about button pushing, that there's people, places, things, words that push our button. And we have all sorts of reactions. So there's kind of a cultural button pushing. Then there's what I want to talk about today is more of your personal button pushings. And I'm sure we all have our own triggers. Some that would make me go absolutely crazy, and you'd look at me like, well, why does that do that to you? So think of a small one, not a huge one, of kind of your button pushing. And I call them gotcha words that just kind of hook you and kind of take you to outer space or to wherever it takes you. You kind of go, ugh. So they're not positive words. They're more of that which get you, that hook you and take you to who knows where. Some of those could be like the IRS. You're just going to go, oh, I take a breath in and hold it for a while. Others can be someone coming back and saying your credit card's been denied, which always sets me really crazy. And I think one for me is the car isn't working. It's like, oh, why, how come, what? I don't know. I just like cars that work, get me to and from. I don't have to change oil and tires. It gets me to where I want to go. The word I want to talk about and the concept, because it's more than just words. As we know that we put meaning to our words. So word itself just doesn't, it's totally just a word. It's kind of out there just hanging out. And each of us put our own meaning, our own feeling with the word. So the word today is surrender. Now, way back or before I got into this teaching, when surrender takes me back to like when I watched TV a lot as a kid in Westerns, and you never surrendered. Surrender meant defeat. It was weakness. It was giving up. It was failure. It was submission. And it was really a loss of something. Loss of control, loss of your freedom. It kind of even could go to the place of that if you surrendered, it could be bodily harm. And people fought to the death rather than surrender. So it kind of comes with a lot of baggage. Now, if you've been in this philosophy for any length of time, you've probably come to a little bit kinder, softer feeling about the word surrender. But we're going to kind of take it into a little bit more because it has a lot of emotion to it. You can feel sort of helpless, like there's nothing left for me to do. It's a giving up. And surrender really, in a spiritual sense, isn't that. So if you've even just begun to think about surrender, we have a belief in the society, or we put it on ourselves, that if you've done something that doesn't work, you just work harder. You kind of push through. And surrender is more of a letting go. There's 4 types of surrender. There's intellectual, emotional, physical, and spiritual. And that's the one that I'm going to talk about, is our spiritual surrender. Now, in the Science of Mind magazine of April of this year, Eugene Holden wrote this about surrender. For some, surrender is viewed as an act of cowardice. It is sometimes seen as a sign of weakness. However, in truth, it takes great courage to surrender. Surrender takes a willingness to let go of what's not working, a willingness to give up control. Hanging on to something that no longer works gets in the way of our greatest good. It takes practice to always see the good that surrounds us in all areas of our lives. It takes a deep desire and letting go to surrender to the all good of God. Now, the other that I got on the website of, what does surrender? It's from mid-15th century. It means to give up something, to deliver over, to give oneself up, to give back, to return. And the one that I do like is yield, which is part of surrendering. In Sanskrit, it's samprada, to give completely or deliver wholly over. That has a spiritual, universal type of meaning or an energy around it. It's a shift in consciousness where we think of the little I, the me, who does all the work and pushes through, to a greater, more expansive I, the big I, or the small self to the big self, to the God within. Sally Kempton, she has a journal link on the web, and it says, to surrender is to become aware of God's energy within oneself, to recognize that energy and to accept it. It's an egoless recognition. So the small I is the ego, who can tell you can keep doing it. Oh, just go for it, You just need to do this. You just need to work harder. And the larger I is allowing that which is in each and every one of us to have its way with us, to partner. It's an allowing a co-creation. So you're not alone, none of us ever are, but it's a shift that works to remind each of us that we have a power, a grace, an energy within us that we can use, at our discretion and our choice, to the universal mind. It's like becoming friends with a mystery, that we don't have all the answers, and there are some things in our lives or in our consciousness that may remain always a mystery. Now, I wasn't real comfortable with mysteries. I mean, I love to read them, but the mystery of life is one that I like spelled out. I like direction. And the mystery, and it still is, that some of those that really hook us or hook me, and I get attached to, it's harder, more difficult for me to surrender into it. But as I remember, oh right, surrender. Allow it, look at it, touch it, feel it. When I first started in Science of Mind, they'd say embrace the feeling, embrace surrender. And I was like, what does that mean? Embrace it, okay? I'd sit and kind of think, and for some reason, I haven't looked into this kind of thing before, but I'd see a Coke bottle, and I'd see myself holding it. Okay, I've embraced it. Okay, there's anger in there. Okay, I'm holding on to it. I'm embracing it. Now what? So now what do I do with it? Like this. Well, as my teachers, who were very patient with me, Kate, it's a process. It's something that comes about. Yes, I know, I understand that. Yeah, okay. Well, what is it that comes next? Just tell me. And of course, process is not your process, it's my process. What do I do to process that? And of course, I like the process to be really short, very fast, and you get there like that. And we know that doesn't always happen. Because part of getting there, whatever that means, part of the embrace is the process of holding it, of looking at it. That I didn't have to bring it home and live with me forever. It was something to just look at and to see, okay, if I just look at it, what's my feeling? Well, it's okay. So I can step closer. So it was really a delving into myself of what did that concept, that word, or that idea of spirit meant to me. And I kind of thought there was sort of only one answer. And as we know, that each person is an individual, so there's as many answers as there are individual minds. And to get that, coming from a medical science background, was, there's only sort of one. This doesn't make sense. How can there be so many of these to end at the same point? So it was releasing some of that stiffness in my own thinking of coming from that background of it has to be this way. I guess it's sort of mechanics, you can't kind of make it up. You sort of can, but you may fail. But, a motor's a motor, and this is what it does, and this is how it goes together. That's how I kind of wanted spirituality to be for me. Give me the book, give me the lessons, I can do it. And it's not like that. It's here's the book, here's the lessons, have fun, enjoy, expand yourself. So learning to like the mystery in anything is a big challenge, to make it friendly, to make it like, oh, I don't have to have every answer? Really? That's not what they told me in nursing school. You do have to have an answer, and the right one if you want to pass. So it was a lot of letting go. Letting go of those emotions, which are generally a little negative, a little kind of tightening, is a great thing, is a nice way of living. Instead of clutching to whatever, it's relaxed for me. It's opened me up to, it's okay not to have an answer. It's okay to maybe never get an answer. So surrender is a word that I've gotten deeper with in spiritual mind here at Circle's Edge and before, and it's become it's very friendly. It's something that I invite in. So if there's something that's tugging, pinching, or really has you on a big line, is to just look at it. You don't have to touch it. You don't have to bring it home. You can just do baby steps. An easy way of getting to become more familiar and then to fall in love with what surrender is. It empowers you through all difficult parts of your life. It makes those difficult, challenging times not so hard, so painful sometimes, that it has so much emotion then that nothing seems to work. You get stuck. But if you're allowed to open to it, it becomes softer, becomes quite not as fearful, more comforting. Dr. Judith Orloff says this about surrender. It is the grace of letting go at the right moment, the ability to accept what is, to exhale, and to flow downstream with the cycles of life. When I read that, it was like, oh, that's it. Because we talk about water and how it goes wherever it goes. It doesn't have a consciousness of, I want to go over there, but it won't let me. That water just flows and goes to places that sometimes we don't want, but it seeps in. It just continues to follow. So when I was thinking about surrender, it was more of an acceptance rather than a handing over, a giving up. Because part of surrender doesn't mean that you're no longer involved. It's still you participating in your life. You can't walk away from it. So it's a combining, it's like, as I said, a co-creation. And I recognized that, no matter how hard I tried or pushed, it wasn't working, whatever it was at the time. That in a surrender can lead you to a different place, a different spot, to an opening that's greater than I myself can come up with. It comes from an insight, an intuition, a feeling of letting this energy that's totally everywhere present be part of your life, part of the energy that you are, because it's still right there. It's your choice to access it or not, to welcome it in, to test it out, and to see. Surrender can also, as it said, be your friend during difficult times. And I was talking with a friend and told her what I was talking about, and she says, boy, you sure have surrendered a lot this last year. Thought about it, went, I have? of surrender is something consciously that I do. And I realized that part of my life is surrendering all the time without me putting a label on it as surrendering. To go with the flow, to be in that inner tube and just float down the river instead of fighting it or making it try to go to a place that it does not want to go, and that I can relax into it. It's also a way to deal with all the changes that have happened in my life, and to deal with, if you want to use that words, or process through sadness that I may have from the loss of my mom, through grieving, and knowing that that's normal, that's okay. It's not something I have to put a lid on and stuff it down, because if you've ever done that and tried to ignore it, you can ignore it for so long, sometimes days, months, sometimes years, perhaps a lifetime. But I invite you to look at whatever that might be and call it back and call it home, because it will come back, it will come up, it will happen again. To let it just be. And it takes the sharpness, the prickliness off of it. If you can imagine, is it a prickly pear that has all those little spikies? And that's gone. That it's now just softer. It's softer in here. It seems softer in your life. And when it happens in one area of your life, you can always use it in another. And that seems to be how it works. If you surrender deeply, wholly, that other parts, relationships, jobs, careers, grocery shopping, I don't know, whatever kind of gets you, they all seem to be affected by this surrendering in to allowing life to happen. And your choice is, how am I going to react to it? That times I totally react and I go off to this place that more anger, more strife, more conflict. And sooner or later, sooner now that I've been in religious science for a few years, sooner I realize that, I'm fighting it. Oh, let's just look at the gifts, which at times are very challenging to see and even harder to feel. But you can. It takes practice. It takes a willingness. So if you're just willing to look at what surrender is to you, what it feels like, what it might feel like, and just open to that instead of closing the door. Just leave it open. It's kind of simmering on the back stove, and it's just doing its thing. So as you know, in simmering, you don't usually smell what's simmering, and then after a while, you feel its aroma. And that's kind of with surrender. You start to feel what it's about. You'll feel a shift, a change. It takes great courage, as it said in the Science of Mind book, and flexibility, and it is a willingness to be vulnerable. There is that point in surrendering that you open, and that you open as great as you can to what's happening, to hold it, to peruse it, to become friends. It also takes trust. It's also the act of ultimate faith. Faith in, does surrender really work? It's kind of like you don't know until you try it. Does anything really work until you try it? It's like, well, I don't know if I can ice skate. Well, have you tried it? Well, no. Well, you're never going to know until you start to ice skate. And yes, you may fall down, and you may get bruised and wobble, and you may even get people laughing at you. You got to try it. Try the surrender. She says, trusting something greater than yourself, opening to a compassionate force, a great kindness. Trust the process, including facing resistance and fears. It's not about giving up or giving in. It's about giving over. This ongoing process is about purification and awakening. Awakening to that which is already present, something you don't have to make or search for, is to open to it. Surrender opens us up to states of grace, where blessings of success are bestowed. It's a doorway in to everything you were meant to be. So this can sometimes be where we might get a little, maybe fearful, or doubt that everything I was meant to be, wow, maybe some of us have been holding some of that back because we were afraid of what I might be, to look deeper. And if it gets really scary, you find someone to talk to. You go into prayer. You find a minister, you find a best friend, and you chit-chat. You start talking about surrender maybe. And what am I meant to be? Because we do hold some of these gifts back because we don't even know we have them. So it's a surrendering search into who you are, into what you can be and what you already are. So, like I said, start out small, test the waters. You don't have to jump into the deep end of the pool. You can, sit on the steps. But if you haven't delved into surrendering, I invite you to do so. I invite you to open to that place that is very powerful, that brings a lot more peace than pushing it away. And then to also in that process is to look at, well, why is this so not what I want to do? So it opens a gamut of a deeper understanding and a deeper relationship with God, Spirit, universal mind, whatever you want to call it, that power that is within. It's an opportunity to grow, to experience so much in life that is just there for you to experience, like a buffet. Pick and choose. What would you like? Well, I've never tried that, but I don't think I like it. Again, how do I know? How do I know unless I stick my fork in? And this is how I do hot sauces. Is I get my fork and I just do a little bit and I actually shake it off because who knows, and I put it on my tongue. Okay, and I wait because I know it can come later, it's not right away, and see, is it too spicy? Or if it's coming up to my mouth and I can smell it, it doesn't even go in my mouth because I already know it's going to be too hot. Take that about life. I'll just take a dab. I'll just take a little bit. And, well, maybe if I put this on something together, it'll taste even better. So surrender to anything you might want to bring up. It's practice. Our Olympic athletes didn't get to the Olympics by just going, I'm going to be a pole jumper or whatever they are. It's not overnight. It's practice. It's a desire. They open to the possibility of becoming an Olympic athlete. And they do it over and over. And they get better and better. It's kind of with surrender. It just opens a place for you that you've never imagined. So it's like, be ready for surprises. Be ready for experiences that are outside your box. And imagine a box where on cartoons or something, the box just sort of opens up. And that's what you're doing with surrender. It's an attunement with energy to a natural rhythm of things. You're in the flow. Balance happens. Harmony happens. So become friends with it. See what it's like. It might be somebody who you don't want to be friends with, and you're like, well, let's just try it. I think maybe I'll just talk with this person, with this friend called surrender, to see what they're about. It's a little bit like praying, that it's an opening. It's a prayer to something greater that then can open more directions, more options, and to find a place that you never even thought of. So it's a noun and a verb. So it's just a word, and then it's an action. Hold it in your hands, look at it. have to write down surrender and put it in your hand, just look at the word. Make it look flurry or change how it looks on paper. When I was doing this talk, it was like, oh, I have to think of a surrender story. And then, of course, my mind went totally and completely blank. It's like, I know I've surrendered. I'm sure of it somewhere. And I'm thinking, so well, I'll go online and find somebody else's surrender story. So I read them, and I was like, oh, yeah. So I'd read some more, and then this one popped into my head. I was like, oh, thank God, thank you. It was surrendering over to surrender to finding a surrender story. So I was like, oh, thank you, thank you. So I was willing to open to something because I didn't have a clue. And this surrendering changed my life forever. So at the ripe old age of 32, I figured I was not going to meet Mr. Right, or the guy, the whatever. I didn't even have a big design. It's the other person. So I accepted that. It's not like I surrendered. I wasn't fighting, I wasn't upset. It was like, oh, my life is just going to be by myself, and that was okay. So I just accepted it. It's like, oh, all right. I felt lighter. I felt freer. Nothing seemed to, it was like, okay, that's fine. So within 6 months, I re-met BC, my husband. And within a year, we were married. And we've been married for 30 plus years. So I let go. I accepted my life that I thought would be without the significant other. And as anyone who has a significant other, has had, whatever, they change your life. And that's how my life was changed, by just the acceptance of surrendering to what's right in front of me, my life. So it can go in many different directions, and God knows better than I do. But in this co-creation of surrendering into life, it becomes surprises. It does fulfill expectations. And it's a marvelous way to be. So surrender is a being, a letting that which prickles you to, ooh, okay, let's just relax, drop the shoulders. Take a breath. Take whatever time you need to accept that challenge, accept that place in you that can surrender over. Your life will be changed. It won't be the same. You'll feel different. So if you want to feel different, or if you want to feel the same that you're feeling, surrender has different levels, different plateaus. You may feel this way for years, or something comes up that's very, very challenging. It's like, oh, right, surrender. Oh, right, surrender. The more you practice it, the more you'll remember it quicker and quicker. And the more it can then do good in your life, good in your body. Your body is less stressful, it's less tight. So it's good for your health, if nothing else. So, Steve, if you would join me in prayer and hold the congregation in consciousness. So take a deep breath. Allow yourself to be gentle, to be open, to be willing to be open. And it's that willingness that opens you to divinity, to that which is within you, everywhere present. You don't have to make it up. You got it. So surrender in to that magnificence that you are. Open to the greater expression of that divinity and wholeness, that place within you that is beyond your wildest dreams. Touch it, feel it, make friends with it. You don't have to be besties right away. Might be a little scary, but I assure you it's worth it. So know that that which is within you, is that ever-present God, Spirit, all that there is. Surrender, let go, open to that experience that is beyond imagination. You are it. You are that thing called love, peace, gentleness. You are everything you imagined and that you allow to even percolate right here and now. So as I open to an ever greater expression of myself, I hold that for each and every one. Hold that for you to express it in a way that you may never have thought possible. Open to life, open to gifts, open to that which has already been given to you in a more magnificent way than ever before. Say yes. Say yes today to surrender, to peace, to love, to all that is within you and around you. In this moment, in this time, you are at choice. So make a choice that's good for you. Because if it's good for you, it's good for the world. And you touch the world. You touch me. You touch those around you. You are encompassed in that holiness, in that place of completeness. You are more than you can imagine. You are never less than. So open, open, open. And knowing that that is the willingness that you are, hold it with a gentleness, a caress, an embrace. Love yourself. That is all that you are required to do. Knowing this is the truth, I just allow it to unfold in my life, in your life, in its perfection. And together we say,